All right, CNT120, Chapter 2 Lab. We are now in the second part of the lab. We're going to create our network diagram. And to do that, we're going to use a program called diagrams.net that connects up to our Google Drive. So we'll log into My Hack. Once we're in My Hack, we'll pick the option for Google Apps. You'll do Drive for Students. I'm going to do Drive for Employees for me. If you haven't done it, you might want to create a folder for CNT120. You can do New, and here create a new folder and call it CNT120 and then put your files in there. I'm going to open my 120 folder, and then I actually have a folder for labs, and then I do actually have a folder for the Chapter 2 lab samples. That way I keep organized on stuff. All right, once I'm there, I'm going to connect this diagrams.net app to this Google Drive. So I'm going to do New, and down here under More, you'll actually see that mine is already connected, but let me show you how to get yours connected. We'll do Connect More Apps, and we're going to search for diagrams.net. Diagrams.net. There it is right there. So once I have that, it used to be called draw.io, so it's draw.io/diagrams.net. It's the same thing. I'll click on that, and I'll click the button for install. Since mine's already connected, the option for uninstall is here, but you'll click install. That'll now connect that to my drive. So I'm going to close that out. So now once that's connected, when I do New up here, under More, the diagrams.net should show up as an option. If it does not by chance, just run through that process again to get it connected. Once I do, again, New, More, diagrams.net, this will allow me to create a network diagram. Now, the first time you launch this, most likely you're going to need to authorize this account. So click the authorize. There will probably be a window that pops up saying allow pop-ups. So again, allow pop-ups for this, and you might need to go around the circle again and click authorize with your hack account, etc. But once you go around and authorize and allow the pop-ups and maybe authorize again, you should come to a window like this that is going to allow you to create a name for it and start a blank drawing. So I'm going to create a name here, and I'm going to leave this file extension alone. I want to leave that draw.io file extension alone. And I'll put in here 120 Chapter 2 Lab Diagram, something like that. Diagram. And I'll do create. And again, it might pop up the whole authorize, accept cookies, that sort of thing. Do that so it gets all connected to your drive. And the idea is it's going to connect to your drive and save it here. Here's my diagram I just created in my drive. It's saving it for me. Now, to do our diagrams, we're going to need to connect some shapes to it, because over here on the left, mine I've used before, so I actually have some things connected, but yours are not going to be connected yet. So you're going to have some very basic shapes. So we will need to, down here on the bottom left, click the option for more shapes. And I'm going to scroll down through, and I'm going to look under the networking area and make sure I click the box for Cisco so we get the Cisco shapes. And I'm going to come down here and click network. And rack is handy sometimes as well, so we'll click that one too. Remember the setting here and do apply. And now those shapes should show up here as options for you. So if I look over here under Cisco routers, if you will, here are router icons I can use for my network map. Okay, let me show you a couple tidbits before we get into our diagram. Over here on the left, again, are all the shapes, and there's lots of them. There are lots of them. So sometimes it's a little tedious looking for them. So usually what you can do is use the search shapes up here and do something like, well, I want to find a Cisco router. So I just search for Cisco router, and it'll pull out, oops, there we go. It'll pull out all the common Cisco router shapes for me. And as I hold my pointer over, it pops up a label to let me know what exactly is that icon. Well, down here is the very basic Cisco router icon. So I'm going to click that, and it'll drop it on the screen. Or I can click and drag it and put it where I want on the screen. One of the two. Well, once I have it out here, I can work with it. I'm going to highlight this extra one, and I want to get rid of it. So I'm going to do a Control X, or if I right click on it, I get the option for delete. Okay. Once it's out here and I click on it, I can resize it if I want to. I can do Control Z to get rid of that. Once I double click on it, I see a little cursor pop up down here. I can start typing things like the label for this thing. Now I have a name on it. If I highlight it, off to the right, I get options for this shape. I can change some aspects of the shape, the style. I can change some aspects of the text. This is really handy. I can change the size of the text, and I can also change where it's located. I can do it on the left if I want to. I can do it on the top if I want to. Sometimes that is really handy to adjust where this goes. Okay, so there's how I can adjust a couple of those features. Let me get another shape out here and we'll show you how to start connecting them. So let me put over here Cisco workgroup switch. And I'm going to grab the switch and put it out here. Well, let's connect these two. Well, to connect these, when I hold my cursor over one of these icons, little arrows show up. If I click one of those arrows and drag it down to the other shape, and when it highlights, let it go, it'll connect the two. So now they're connected that when I move it around, they'll stay connected. Okay, so that's the first little piece there. The next is, if you're like me, that angled line does not look great for my drawing. I want to neaten it up. I want to look more like what we have down here. So what I can do is if I highlight that line, it brings up the properties of this line. So I can, over here under Style, I can adjust my line properties. Right here, where it looks like a little zigzag line, if I hit the drop down, I can select straight, and it'll now make a straight line. Oh, that looks a little bit better. But again, if you're like me, I see that arrow there, and I'm like, well, that's not really what I wanted to show. Highlight that line again. Over on the right, I can adjust here and say no arrow. And now it gets rid of that it now just shows a line. So I'll double click on my Cisco switch here, and I'll do Cisco work group switch. All right, we have a start to our first diagram by just putting a couple of those features in. All right, I'm going to pause there. When I come back in the next podcast, we'll actually do this diagram, and then we'll save and submit.